Hello and welcome back to Tachikawa. You are listening to Sakamichi Nights. My name is Matthew Boynton and I'm joined again this week by a returning Daniel Bellamy. How are you today, Daniel?
Hey, I'm good. I took a week off to rest and recuperate from the grind that is this podcast.
Another set of charges dropped. Another witness dead in a freak shampooing accident. You must feel pretty vindicated right now.
I guess so. Yeah, why not? Let's say yes.
Congratulations on your return from the big house. Have you had a good week this week?
Yeah, it's been good. All right.
What's been the best thing that happened to you all week?
Man, you always put me on the spot with these tough questions, asking me to be positive about life. I made hash browns in the morning.
Okay.
You ever made hash browns?
Yeah. You've got to squeeze all the water out.
You do. Yeah. You tipped me onto a website, Serious Eats, a while back.
Okay.
And the thing I like about Serious Eats, and maybe it's just the recipes I've looked at on there, but like they have the recipe. You know, a lot of recipe websites, in order to like goose the SEO results, they'll tell you a story about their childhood in Nantucket with Graham and how they used to make sweet potato pie.
Pop and me more in their special hash brown recipe.
Yeah. I don't have time for that, but Serious Eats goes a different route with it, where they will be like, okay, we found that there were like 11 different variables that we needed to control for, and I tried adjusting every single one of them independently, and this is the best way to make hash browns. And they will go through each one and be like, we tried squeezing out the water, we tried not squeezing out the water, we put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, we put it in the microwave for 4 minutes. So
we called Pop and Mimo.
We called Pop and Mimo and asked them what the hell they did. So I feel like they're I like their recipes because I like that kind of scientific approach to it.
Right.
Anyway, so I made hash browns based on, the Serious Eats food recipe. Serious Eats recipe.
Yeah.
And they go in there about squeezing out the water. So that's how I knew. I'm a big fan of Serious Eats, that website.
A lot of people complain about this, but I don't actually mind when somebody has like their whole life story before they get to the hash browns recipe, because you're getting the recipe for free, and it doesn't take you that long to just scroll past all of the rubbish about their life, right, and completely ignore it to get down to the recipe. At least just let them put it up there, you know?
Oh, I can't stop them.
Right.
What do you mean? Let them. I have to let them.
But I do enjoy, like you say, the Serious Eats approach of like, this is the best way to cook hash browns. And don't just take my word for it. Here are the reasons why this is the best way to cook some hash browns.
Well, they link to other websites as well. They'll be like, this website, this guy said this. Yeah. In the hash browns ones, they link to someone who was making like latkes or something like that.
Right.
Potato pancakes and different things. They were like, it's not the same, but it's kind of the same. So
very seasonal, yeah.
We took these considerations into account.
How were the hash browns?
They were okay.
Great.
I made them twice, and, you need a bit of fine-tuning with them, right? Like, I think there's how thick is your layer of hash is kind of the question.
Yeah, that's a question I ask myself a lot.
Yeah, man. That's one to ponder of a lonely Thursday evening.
What is your ideal hash brown accompaniment? Are we talking over easy eggs?
Yeah.
A steak?
No, straight up over easy. Just like cook an egg so the yolk's still runny and slap that bad boy on top. That's what I want.
Are you flipping them? Are you doing them over easy or just sunny side up?
Well, just sunny side up, sorry.
Right.
I'm not really down with the egg.
Not with the over easy.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. A little bit of ketchup, a bit of hash brown, some over easy eggs. Very tasty.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Recently, my kids have got really into watching 80s music videos.
Okay. That must please you greatly.
Because they think they're hilarious, right? We watched the video for Last Christmas by George Michael and Wham. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. Have you ever seen that video?
Probably, but not to recall it.
They're all in a chalet in the Alps.
This makes sense.
They throw snowballs at each other, which horrified my son. You can't throw snow! You can't throw snow! He's clearly been very clearly told this at nursery. You're not allowed to throw snow. So they were throwing snow, which was pretty naughty.
Yeah.
But the thing that delighted them the most was the haircuts. Like, this was the era of big hair. Big hair. And so they really enjoyed that. They really enjoyed laughing at the haircuts. They really enjoyed me telling that Pop and Mimo used to have hair like that back in the 80s.
Did you bust out some pictures of your parents?
I've also shown them recently Funky Town by Lips Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Big tune. And You Spin Me Right Round by Dead or Alive.
Okay.
Another very big hair video.
Yeah.
So here's the question. What would be the conclusion to this journey? We've started with Last Christmas. We've gone through Funky Town and You Spin Me Round. What is the big hair finale that I should pull out tomorrow?
Strictly hair?
Well, just however you want to group it.
Just general kind of. I mean, I think Flock of Seagulls comes to mind immediately. But I think for the full kind of 80s style experience, Boy George and Cyndi Lauper, something along those lines, really gives it to them both barrels, I think.
Did they ever perform together?
I don't know. They should have. Are they the same person?
Live Aid?
Yeah.
Maybe we could get them
Probably,
both in one video at the same time.
You want their own video, though, where they're really, like, leaning into their thing.
Karma Chameleon is a pretty good video as well, as I recall. I'm sure we could find some good Cyndi Lauper. Hey, if you're listening and you have a suggested video for me to show my kids on this hair odyssey, will you leave it in the comments below? Dan will be sure to reply to all of those questions and comments. We're not just here to talk about 80s hair videos, though, are we, Dan? What is this podcast all about?
It's about 90s hairs videos.
Yep, 90s hairs videos.
Hairs videos, yep.
Love those hairs videos.
Yeah, man.
2000s hairs videos?
No, terrible. They really fell off a cliff.
Do we enjoy drinking beer on this podcast?
We do.
Do we enjoy reviewing the beer?
Oh, no. No, we don't.
So we're just here...
To drink.
To drink and to celebrate beer.
Celebrate.
That's right. Everything that we drink is a beer that we serve, so that means it's going to be good. You get the Sakamichi seal of approval. And this week's beer, well, I guess we can't really review it. We have to celebrate it because it's a beer that we made together with our friend Chris Poole at Shiokaze Brew Lab, and in collaboration with Setoji Brewery down in Shikoku. Mm-hmm. What is the beer that we're going to be drinking this week?
The beer this week is Three Amigos Dry Stout.
Right. I have not tried this beer yet, so I'm very excited to taste it.
Really?
What do you understand a dry stout to be?
Dry stout sometimes... is a dry stout always a dry Irish stout?
Sure.
That's one and the same?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know a ton about it. Obviously, it's dry, as the name implies, and I think it should have a lot of roasty character to it. I'm not sure specifically, but I know this one that we made came in pretty light. It's 4.5%. Would you say that's standard of the style, or is there a range in there?
I think if you're looking at traditional beers from the I was going to say from the UK, but from the British Isles, from the Atlantic archipelago, of which Ireland and the UK are part, then yes, 3.5 to 5% is a standard ABV for traditional beers from that area. And I think a dry stout can be understood to be held up in contrast with a sweet stout, right? So it's not going to have any lactose or any residual sweetness in it. It's not going to have a really full body. It's going to be very dry, possibly get quite a lot of roasty bitterness from the malt.
Yep.
Who knows? I still haven't tried it. I've been waiting to taste this beer on the podcast.
Wow, saving it for the pod. I cracked a can of this the day they arrived.
I'm sure you did.
It's great.
They were here at 9 a.m. and you were bursting open that case. Yeah. Cracking open a can. Anyway, why don't we dive into the beer? All right, we're back. We're drinking some Three Amigos Dry Stout by Sakamichi Brewing and Shiokaze Brew Lab. What do you think of this beer, Dan?
In a weird beer. Roasty.
Okay.
It's extremely roasty. Both delivering a ton of that in the aroma and then also on the palate as well. And then it has a lot of depth of character, I think. A lot of roasty, again, just real roasty notes to it, top to bottom. But it finishes, it's so dry, it finishes almost quite quickly. Not in an unpleasant way, but in a kind of like a lagery way, where it's real crisp and clean on the back end. And they kind of go, I'd like to have another sip of that, and go back in again.
there are all kinds of things that you can roast, right? You can roast a chicken.
Mm-hmm.
You can roast a turkey.
Yeah.
You can roast some coffee beans.
Mm-hmm.
You can roast some chocolate. You can roast a fool.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of roastiness are you getting out of this?
What kind of fool? I'm stuck on fool roasting now. I really like coffee bean scent to it. There's obviously none of that in there. This is all from the malts, but they definitely get a fair amount of like almost kind of burnt coffee aroma.
Yeah, it almost tastes smoky, doesn't it? There is no smoked malt in here, but there is a certain acridity to it, which almost tastes smoky. And I think that's from the very roasted malts and rye. There's some roast rye in here as well, isn't there? Which adds a really interesting and deep note. I do get some coffee from this, like some aroma of coffee certainly on the nose, and then a hit of coffee on the flavor as well on the palate. But as you say, it's a really dry finish. It doesn't have that kind of sweet, full body that you might expect from such a flavoursome beer. So if I was to define this beer in one word, that word would be crushable, which I know is what Chris Poole was going for with this recipe.
It's a hallmark of his beers.
Crushability is his watchword. It's pretty good stuff, I have to say. Every time we drink a beer, we also like to pair it with something. So I'm going to spin the wheel of pairings now, but of course we can't have the two most recent things that we paired it with, which were, of course, Dan.
Most recent were drinking companion and video games.
Right, so it's not going to be either of those. Let's find out what it's going to be this week. Activity. What's it going to be? You're going to sit down. I see the word tubin behind your eyes.
No.
No?
I was going to say winter tubin.
Winter tubin. What's the difference between tubin and winter tubin?
I just made it up, but it happens in the winter, essentially, so you need to be prepared for the cold.
You could go down a ski slope on a rubber ring, right?
Holding a beer. Drinking it.
Pretty extreme, I have to say. The snow would be flying up in your face. You might need like a sippy cup to have your beer out of. Is that what you're choosing?
No. I mean, I'd like to, but no, I'll choose something else.
So what's it going to be?
This tastes to me a bit like a kotatsu beer.
What do you mean by that?
You sit under the kotatsu in times when it is cold.
Yes.
And yet under the kotatsu, all things are warm. So I think that you want something that... I feel like this beer kind of bridges that divide. It's dark, it's roasty, it'll kind of warm you up, it's got a bit of character to it. But it's 4.5%. It's not gonna put you to sleep under the kotatsu. So like the lightness of the ABV and the dry finish, I think match with the warmth that you feel under the kotatsu, right? And then the roasty depth to it and the dark character match with the cold weather that you're feeling, which is the reason why you're in the kotatsu. So I'm thinking like New Year's Day, you're at home, you got nothing to do. Maybe you're watching the Hakone Ekiden or whatever you choose to do with your time, playing some video games. But you are sitting in your kotatsu with a glass of this on top of it in front of you, sipping away, having a good old time.
We do have some international listeners. Hello to all of you around the world. For those people who may not be familiar, what is a kotatsu?
Kotatsu is like I guess... It's a coffee table-ish kind of thing. It's a low table, usually sits in your living room area, and it has built into it essentially a quilt, skirt kind of thing, and then a heating element underneath it. So the quilt goes all the way to the ground. You can pull it up on yourself like a blanket. So you sit on the floor and put your legs under the kotatsu, and it's super nice and toasty under there.
Yeah, I've never really understood the kotatsu, to be honest. I don't really get it or enjoy it, right? Your legs get really hot. You can't get out from the table. You have to sit there and watch the ekiden, which for me is torture. Why not just heat the whole house? And then you can go where you want and do what you like. Defend the kotatsu.
My experience with kotatsus has been when the whole house could not be heated.
Right.
It was an older Japanese house. So central heating was not really a thing that we had going on.
So you've got to sit at this table watching appalling Japanese television at New Year.
No. So my point was you could watch whatever you want. Like January 1st, you don't have anything to do. If you
Right.
want to watch the marathon, you can. But if you want to play video games, you can. You're there. You want to play cards with people who are also under your kotatsu with you, you can do that.
Well, that sounds like a very good time.
I don't need to confine you to anything. You can also adjust the temperature of the kotatsu. It's not just on or off.
I don't need to be shackled to this kotatsu.
Yeah, man.
Eat some mikans, drink a glass of 3 Amigos. Sounds like a pretty good time.
Yep.
I'm going to go in the opposite season. I would like to be outside drinking this beer. The roasty acrid notes for me say campfire, being outside in the woods. And I would like to be outside watching some live music.
Okay.
Perhaps a folk band.
Yep.
No amplifiers here.
Okay.
We're all in the woods.
Right. All acoustic.
It's all acoustic. Maybe there's a harp. Maybe there's an Irish drum, a guitar. Somebody might even sing
Right.
while we're here. But I think this would be the perfect accompaniment to watching some hearty woodland folk
Right.
music.
Okay. It's difficult for me to not just say, like, camping out around a fire.
That's going to be a good time, no matter what you're drinking.
No, I mean, anytime we pair it, and it's like activity or location or whatever, because, like, you know, we like outdoorsy stuff. I like camping. I like having campfires and stuff. And a lot of that stuff is also difficult to do in Japan. So there's probably a fair amount of nostalgia for me of
Right.
things that used to be commonplace in my life when I lived in the States. But yeah, like being outside on a crisp evening, either in summer or the winter or the fall or whenever, sitting around a fire with friends and sleeping outside in a tent and stuff and having a tasty beer. Like,
Here's Bigfoot. He's come to
Pretty
sit down
good.
by your fire.
hey
He's
man,
going to share a few
you got
tunes.
beer for him? Yeah. Yeah, why not? Pick up the mandolin.
Why not? So I would like to be sitting outside with Bigfoot and all of your friends.
Strumming his mandolin.
And talking about how Dan is stuck under that kotatsu whilst we listen to Bigfoot give a few tunes. Interesting pairings this week. That's not all that's been going on this week, though, has it? There's been some big stuff going on in our space here.
Big
hasn't
stuff.
there?
Yep.
You want to tell the people at home what's been going on here?
Did you talk about it last week?
Didn't actually know. Dominic was here, so we talked about comedy.
You had plenty to talk about.
Exclusively, yeah.
So last Wednesday, you fired up our brand new brew house and made a beer and put it in the tank.
Yep.
And today, which is also Wednesday at time of recording, you made another beer, a second beer, and fired that one into the tank. So they are, well, at least the one from last week is fermenting away, and the one that we did today is in the tank and has the yeast in there, and we'll get going on that relatively soon.
The one from last week is basically done fermenting. So now all that's left for us to do is to chill it, carbonate it, and then package it.
Yep.
So it's conceivable that beer could be ready before the end of the year. Could be.
Very exciting.
Who knows? Yeah, so it has been exciting to start to get to know the brew house in here. The tax office finally have given us the go-ahead to start making beer. And so we have 2 beers in the tanks fermenting away now, which could be ready this year, but probably will be ready at the beginning of next year. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
So, first things first, you've been up there and working on it and stuff. It is a brewery, right? It's a brewery. You made beer.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. I was a little concerned. It was like a giant, I don't know, meth kit or something.
It can be both.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, let's table that for later. All breweries are largely the same in that they do the same thing.
They exist to perform the same task.
But they are very, very different in terms of how they do that, right?
Right.
And some of them that we have seen can be more conveniently set up than others. With this system in here, was there anything that was easier than you expected, or than you've experienced at other places?
Taking the samples to check like the gravity and the pH as we're brewing is very easy on this system. So as we're making the beer, we want to be checking it to see how much sugar there is basically in the liquid, what the gravity of it is, what the density of the wort is, and what the pH is as well. And from a lot of systems, what you got to do is just get a plastic jug and dip it into whatever you're testing and scoop some of it out.
Which is often quite hot.
It's usually extremely hot. You got to wear protective gloves and then put that into a test tube and then put that in the fridge somewhere and hope that it cools down nicely. Our one has nice little sample taps, sample cocks on all of the places that you want them to be. And it also has a really handy chilling station. So I can chill the samples down really quickly, put the hydrometer straight into the bit where we chill it down, take the reading straight off there. So that is super convenient and super easy to do.
Nice.
Which is very different from a lot of other systems that I've worked with.
Right. So that's well thought out.
Yes. They have put some thought into where these sample taps are and how the samples get processed.
Was there anything that was harder than you expected, or like the flip side of that, anything that was less convenient than you would like it to be?
For some reason, all of the drains, or several of the drains, are inconveniently located. Right, so we want to be able to drain like the remaining liquid out of the mash tank, the mash tun, when we're finished with that. There is no way for me to easily drain that into the drain. It has to turn to the right, which means it has to pour over the floor,
right?
Which is annoying. But we will figure that out in time, I think. Maybe I just need a longer hose or a slightly better way of doing that. But I've been surprised at how inconveniently situated the drains on this system are.
Right, yeah.
I guess we didn't really tell the manufacturers where our drain was going to be.
Sure.
So they just put them where they thought would be best.
Coordinated process would have been better. Do you want to talk about the two beers you made, or you want to keep that under wraps for now?
No, we can talk about them. The first one is going to be a pale ale. It's just something very simple where we were figuring out how the system worked and how everything moved through it. I had done a few water brews before we came to that day, which is basically you do all the steps of brewing, but you only use water. You don't use any other ingredients. And I'd done a couple of those, so I knew where all the valves were and everything, but I had never done a full brew day. And so I knew that something was probably going to go wrong at some point during the day. So it'd be best to keep the recipe very simple and without any kind of faff or complication. And so that one's going to probably come out about 5.5%, 30 IBUs, a nice pale, simple pale ale. And then the one that we made today is an IPA. And so we're increasing the complexity a bit. This time there are a lot more hops involved, quite a bit more malt as well. So we've got a higher ABV, some higher bitterness. And we will be dry hopping this one as well. So that adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
We're all building up to what everyone wants, which is the return of haze craze.
Indeed.
Right, everyone's thirsty for more hazy IPAs.
Yeah.
So we're building up to that. That'll probably be the third or the fourth brew that we do.
Okay, that was my next question was third beer. Is it another practice run, or are you going to push the boat out a little bit?
We need to just keep increasing the complexity every time. So with hazy IPAs, one of the things that make those a little bit more difficult is that you have to control the pH in the mash tun and in the kettle and in the tank a bit more closely. You need a slightly lower pH for those than you would for a non-hazy IPA. That's about promoting that haze stability. And so that means things like including some acidulated malt to get the mash pH down, possibly even treating the sparge water with a little bit of acid to make sure that the pH stays down, making sure that pH stays low throughout the whole brew. And then it also involves a lot more hops in the whirlpool and a lot more dry hopping as well. And so the complexity is higher because of all of those things. Hopefully, by the third or the fourth time around, we'll be ready to do something like that.
Right. Yeah, people definitely enjoyed that beer. I'm sure they're waiting for it to come back.
Coming soon, I hope.
There's a little bit of a run-up to this one, so bear with me.
Okay.
You and I both enjoy cycling.
Yes.
And I think it's fair to say that we both enjoy bicycles that can perform beyond our means of pushing them. Like the bicycle is never going to be the thing that holds us back on a ride. We don't train or ride frequently enough to reach a point where it's like, I need a better bike. This bike is holding me back, right? Would you agree that's true? You have a pretty nice road bike.
Yes, but I am definitely the thing that is holding the road bike back.
As am I.
It's like the Jerry Seinfeld thing, right? If this plane crashes, the seat will be wearing me for protection.
Right, exactly like that. So in terms of this system, you think you can push this system to its limits? Will you ever reach a point where you're like, man, this brew house is holding me back. I can't make the beers I'm trying to make. I'm a mad scientist.
No, because as we said earlier, crushability is our watchword. Right? We try to make beers that are fairly easy drinking and easily accessible for a lot of people. We're not doing some crazy, huge barrel-aged barley wines or anything like that. Well, at least not yet.
Yeah.
But to be honest, that isn't the kind of beer that I enjoy drinking. So it isn't the kind of beer that I want to make. I want to make nice, crushable pale ales, fun stouts and porters. The biggest thing that is going to hold us back on this system is just that we only have 3 tanks. We only have 3 fermentation tanks. So that's really the bottleneck. We could do brewing 3 days in a row, and then all 3 tanks would be full, and there'd be nothing else we could do for another month. We just have to wait for all that beer to be ready. And so, hopefully, if all this beer is really successful, then we will be in a position in a year or so to put some more tanks in here, and then we will be able to increase our output because of that. So the thing that would be holding us back is just that we don't have enough tanks right now.
Okay.
There's not enough steel in here.
Yeah.
We need more steel.
It's always the issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you for submitting to my interview.
What about you? What are you excited to do or to make on this brewing system?
Super high alcohol barrel-aged barley wine specifically.
I have some bad news for you. But what would you look to be making? Like, if I was to throw the keys over to you, what kind of recipe would you want to design for your first beer on this system?
I would really like to try to make a really flavorful pale ale. We had Johnny Utah from Georgetown on tap, and we currently have Sky Kraken from Fremont on tap, 2 Seattle breweries and 2 relatively famous, certainly Johnny Utah, famous pale ales. Low ABV, but really, really flavorful beers. And I think being able to make something like that comes in somewhere between 4.5% and 5.5%, but has a ton of that kind of modern IPA character, tropical fruits and citrus and things like that. I feel like that would be, if we could achieve something along those lines, like the 2 beers that we've had in here recently, then I would be really excited about that.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because there's so much process that goes into that. It's not just making a recipe, but everything around the cellaring, treating the beer, the dry hopping, all that kind of stuff really all adds up together. And so, yeah, we can certainly give it a go. And hopefully we will be able to reach the levels or to approach the levels that have been set by those 2 extremely good breweries at some point in the future. Everyone's just going to have to keep coming in here and drinking the beer that we have put on tap.
Right, until we get there.
Until we get there. Please just keep drinking the beer, is my message to you. Speaking of incredible achievements, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Ishikawa Summit C, who recorded their 100th episode last week. I stopped in briefly during the second hour, so you may not have got to my segment yet, but that's a lot of podcasting.
Yeah.
And we are closing in on that number ourselves. We're in the 80s now.
Are we going to do 200 a 2-hour episode?
We're closing in on 100 episodes. So here's my question to you: what special thing do you think we should do for our 100th episode?
We should look back at all the beers that we have celebrated and find the celebratiest beer.
Are we going to have to drink each of them, all 100 beers?
Yes, we're going to have to,
line them up, get them down. That sounds challenging, purely from a physical point of view.
Mm.
But if you're listening and you have any ideas about things that you would like us to do for our 100th episode, get in touch. We're always happy to receive comments, messages, questions. And that big 100 is creeping up on us, Dan. We'll have to.
Are we doing a 2-hour episode, though? That's what I want to know.
Absolutely not.
I need to... No. Okay, good.
I have more respect for our listeners than Joe and Casey do. So look forward to that. And if you are going to listen to Ishikawa Up to Z, skip the first hour and a half. I'll appear somewhere in the second hour.
Mm.
Before we leave today, do we have anything coming up on the tap boards or in the fridge that you think people should know about?
We're actually getting a keg of Sierra Nevada Celebration in. We had cans of it. For some reason, the delivery of the cans and the delivery of the kegs was separated. So we had the cans in. They sold out pretty quickly. And now the keg is coming in. So we'll get that on tap. That's arriving on Friday. We'll get it on tap pretty quickly, I think. That's a big beer for Christmas, right? It comes out every year, kind of end of November time. So for a lot of people who are into craft beer, that is like...
It's a
the
celebration.
Sign of Christmas coming on.
Yeah. What can you tell us about the beer itself? Is it a fresh hop ale?
It is. It's fresh hop IPA.
Okay.
So it's straight from the harvest of this year and into the beer, basically.
Excellent. I will very much be looking forward to that one. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Casey, for inviting me on last week. Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again next time.
Thanks for listening, everybody.